Welcome, welcome, welcome. I guarantee we're going to have a little fun here, but we're going to learn a lot. My name is Ed Durbin. I'm a Senior Vice President of Global Business Development for Explicate. We're a group with about 140 years worth of experience. I recently joined, so I think I jacked that number up a little bit. But we work with some of the largest companies all over the world. We basically sit down and listen to the voice of the customer, understand their problems, but better understand their wanted outcomes. And then we partner together to actually create the processes to allow them to get where they want to go. So it's a great organization. If you're not following Explicate, you should. So today I have the great pleasure of I can say a long friend, Mr. Rob Garf. And before I butcher up his past, I'm going to let him introduce himself and give us an idea who he is, what he does, and what's important. So Rob, I'm going to pass it to
Awesome.
you.
Ed, it's so good to see you. When you called me up and asked for me to be a part of this, I was so excited and really glad to be here. Like you said, hopefully folks on the line will learn a little bit, but most importantly, have a lot of fun. And so we're going to talk holiday. Rob Garf here, as Ed mentioned, calling in from just outside Boston here in Massachusetts. I've been on all sides, it feels like, the retail table. And most recently, at the beginning of this year, joined Cordial as head of strategy and insight. So we are an AI marketing platform that allow iconic brands like Abercrombie and Fitch, Levi's, LL Bean to understand who their consumers are and then activate on that consumer's intent in the moment, wherever, whenever they want to engage. So I'm really excited to dive into the topic here today, Ed.
All right. Well, before we dive in, I got a note from the lawyers. I'm supposed to say, I am not AI generated. You are not AI generated. So everything that you and I say, unfortunately, we were 100% responsible for. So with
Okay.
that,
I wish I knew that ahead of
all
time, but okay, we'll see how we do.
right, I'm going to kick it off to you. Let's start at the top.
All right, so we're talking holiday, and it feels so apropos in that we're right in it. If you start to see the ads coming through over the top or via digital, you're hearing it as a consumer that the retailers want to get your attention early and try to pull together and forward the demand. But I guess before we get into the details, Ed, I think it's important to note that um, sales are going to go up. Sales always go up. And so that's really not the question. If you listen to my good friend Kayla Schwartz at Salesforce, who has led the shopping index for years, she'll tell you it's going to grow digitally about 4% globally. And if you look at NRF as an example, we're somewhere between 2.5 to 3.5 total retail increase. But really, the question is the details, right? In terms of what that means. Is it profitable growth? Where is the growth coming from? And how are the consumers going to shop? Where are they going to shop and why? And so that's really what I want to get into with the audience here today, if that sounds good.
Go for it. So you
All
know
right,
what? I think you got the as it says five themes. So let's go
let's
with number one.
let's go to number one. So tariffs are hitting the shelves. And what do I mean by that? Well, we've been hearing about tariffs since the first quarter. Actually, the announcements around the tariffs that we got from the administration here in the States felt like it was a shockwave similar to COVID, where we saw retailers really pulling back with all of the uncertainty, not sure how the rest of the year was going to look. And how that manifested itself is they pulled back on marketing, at least paid marketing. They also got really tight around inventory. So fast forward when they had to cut the POs for the holiday season, they were much more conservative in terms of the depth and breadth that they bought this year because they didn't want to hold on to inventory that might be much more expensive than they anticipated after the holiday season. And when you have to discount that and get through the sell through, you know this, Ed, better than anyone, that is just a tough hit on margin. So we're going to see, in fact, the retailers really being very, very tight on their promotions, very closely monitoring the margin, but also consumers are going to start to see, if you haven't already, in the holiday gift purchasing cycle, increases on almost any product they're going to purchase.
Yeah, well, you mentioned tariffs, and I was recently in Sydney, Australia, and I was in this artist studio, and there was a sign on the wall saying, "We ship free anywhere in the United States."
Oh,
And I
wow.
walked up, I said, "Wow, that's a great offer." And she goes, "Wait a minute, are you an American?" I said, "Yes, I am." She says, "That does not apply to you because the tariffs, it would add 169 US dollars to to the cost." I said,
Yeah,
"Well, what do I do?" She handed me a cardboard tube and said, "We'll roll it up, put it in here, and you get to carry it back to the United States," which I did. But I
yeah.
just thought, but anywhere else in the world, she says, "Oh yeah, we ship for free." So anyway, so
Wow.
that's a nice little bundle of tariffs and a real life situation. So, well, what's number two?
Yeah, before I get to number two, and I think
Okay.
it helps really play off of what you just talked about, is we surveyed retailers earlier this year, and 16%, only 16% said they're going to absorb the cost, right? So you're going to see higher prices at the shelves. Be prepared for it. What that often means, and brings us back to my first point around it's going to grow, is even though we're going to see a growth in net sales, the demand is lower, right? Because you can only buy fewer things with the more increased price. So keep that in mind. Again, it's
Yeah.
not as always rosy as the headline shows. But the second one is we're going to see a tale of two consumers. So you have one consumer that is on the wealthy side of the spectrum, that they're seeing their portfolio, given the stock market, absolutely boom. You hear Scott Galloway talk about this all the time, and that's the top whatever percent that is feeling really good based on what they're seeing. And so you're going to continue to see spend in that area. But then you get the rest of the country, which is a vast majority of us, who are really looking at moving from wants to needs. So we're seeing a really interesting shift, not only during the holiday season, but seeing senses of this through the first couple of quarters, where it's going from, I want to explore the world, where, you know what, I'm going to stay more local, to I want to buy luxury products, to, private label sounds pretty good. Right. And so you're seeing a shift where, in that case, experiences oftentimes get the low end of the stick, or what, short end of the stick, I guess is the expression. And people want something more material, more tangible, and something that is focused more on their needs, even in gift giving, if you think about it. Like, rather than getting your kid a new toy, you might get them a new mattress or comforter, right? And so there's a slight shift in the mentality. And so it's not like either, it's a zero sum game, let's put it that way. There are going to be winners and losers as it relates to these consumers and their buying patterns.
So some people are absolutely positively sitting on their wallets, and some people are absolutely positively not sitting on their wallets. I mean,
That's
is
right.
that
That's right. And so, from a marketing company and where I sit, that's good news for those who understand your consumers and understand their intent and their propensity to buy based on time of day, based on channel, based on message, and understanding the price sensitivity. So you're not necessarily spraying and praying and giving mass discounts, but you're rather understanding who the consumers are, and then marketing them accordingly. And so it's not a total dire situation at all. It's an opportunity, as long as you're taking advantage of it. And again, going back to that overall point about preserving margin and not just throwing around the discounts.
so? Should we expect good news when LVMH announces their across the board numbers? What do you think?
You know what? I'm not in the stock picking game, nor a global economist, so I'm not going to comment on that. It's a great brand, and I'll leave it at that.
I bet you Mr. Galloway would probably have a few comments about that, but
Likely, yes, he can get away with it.
we'll pass that along. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about number three.
Yeah, number three is scarcity is driving demand. So again, all of this kind of plays really well together, where we talked about retailers pulling back on their open to buys. They really are more conservative than they've been when you look at just the products coming into port and you're looking at the purchase orders across the industry, they don't want to overbuy. So you're seeing much more shallow buys and you're seeing allocation be lower than it typically has. Because again, for retailers, they'd rather pull it back and have it in the central distribution center where they can do some, responsive replenishment if required throughout the holiday season, or being able to ship that to a individual consumer rather than it going to a dead end in many cases in the store, especially for those retailers that don't have the ability to fulfill from the store to be able to optimize that inventory. And so I bring this up and I want to also bring us back to during the pandemic, where for the first time ever, there was actually a run up or run out of products and a lot of empty shelves. Because if you remember, a lot of the containers were getting stuck at the port of LA and not through the local supply chain. And so, what I mean by that, be careful to not wait till the very last minute to buy the product thinking you're going to get the best price, because you're more likely to have an out of stock than you are a great deal.
So the days of stack it high and watch it fly are over?
For now, anyways, that's a really good statement, and I think it couldn't be more true right now that there's definitely a pulling back. I don't know what would be the stock them low and let them flow. I don't know, but there's something there, Ed, fully. And again, I just would caution because so many people do kind of do the wait and see game. And I want to caution people that the retailers have pulled back. And let's face it, if the product isn't already in the domestic supply chain at this point, it's a very low likelihood that the retailers will be able to bring it in and get it on the shelf.
So the same way the consumer is there's fear and they're scared. Do you think that translates into retailers are scared and have fear? I mean, are we on the same plane here?
Yeah, I mean, retailers are definitely worried about sitting on inventory at the end of the season. That's always the case, by the way. So I don't want to paint a picture like this is new for this season, but it's definitely more acute because of the margin impacts they're taking on because of the tariffs. And let's not forget, too, you don't have to just worry about the sell-through during the holiday season. You also have to worry about the returns that come back in and having to process that and determining how you can resell it or not. So retailers are being very, very conscious of the situation around tariffs. And by the way, it's not a terrible thing to create scarcity because that oftentimes does drive up demand. I'm just not sure how much retailers are playing into that. What I have been advising our clients is provide transparency. Transparency works in your favor.
Yeah.
Provide exclusivity as well. Show that this isn't a endless pit of inventory, but rather there is a finite amount of merchandise that is available, and that should create some demand.
I mean, we're both ex-retailers. I can't imagine the DMMs and the GMMs and the head buyers, you know, sweating it out. I mean, because that's what they're doing right now. They're sweating. I mean, you remember those days.
I know.
Do I really press that button and approve that order? Or talking to the fulfillment and the distribution center guys, hey, where the hell's my shipment?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
It's definitely that sense of, again, on the inventory, every buyer believes it's going to be a hit, right, in terms of whatever product they're bringing to market. But it's about, again, really being sensitive around those inventory levels. And again, it's not just what's interesting here, Ed, because of these dynamics in the marketplace, it's really bringing together the demand side and the supply side. And so we're seeing a lot more coordination with our clients at Cordial, anyways, around how the marketing really drives the inventory. And I'll tell a quick story if it's okay. And it's a really
please, please.
embarrassing one. But early on in the internet, I led e-commerce at Lids, the specialty hat retailer. And it wasn't during the holiday, but it was during the World Series. And actually, it's appropriate because of the time of year and the World Series that's taking place right now. We were able to get a pre order of hats, World Series championship hats. So as soon as And this is right around, I would say, 99, 2000, maybe 2001. The Yankees won the World Series. And so I was so excited. We were within seconds able to send out an email to our loyalty member. We had a huge loyalty program at the time, and for people to be the first to own the hats. And so what happened is, first of all, we didn't segment the list. So we sent it to people in the Northeast, but we included Red Sox fans, which I'm from the Boston area. If I was getting a Yankees World Series hat promotion, I would not be happy. Second, by the way, I sent it out to probably 200,000 people. Guess how many hats we had, Ed?
5,000.
No, not even. We had a
Oh,
couple hundred at best. So, like, you can do the math and you're going to have a high conversion rate at this point. We were pissing off a lot of people. And so, my point here is lesson learned. I get it, and it was totally my fault. But now retailers are coordinating a lot more of the upstream and downstream to come together to make sure that the product's actually available when the consumer wants it.
does this where I know it's been a big word over the last few years, is this where the personalization comes into
Oh,
play?
100%, 100%. And it's personalization, but it's also relevancy in real time. And what I mean by that is you could get something that might be interesting to you, but if it doesn't hit you in the moment that you actually want to do something, it's not as impactful. And that's why we at Cordial talk a lot about intent and understanding intent in that moment, which is a combination of understanding the consumer's context, the memory of their information, their profile, their preferences, which are so key because whatever engagement you have should be right within the intent of when the consumer is doing something. So it might be different on a train the way to work versus at the desk during lunch versus on vacation somewhere else. So you got to understand what they're trying to solve in that moment, engage them with relevancy, not just personalization.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The interesting thing is when we do these webinars and podcasts and speeches and whatnot, everybody, including ourselves, we're all consumers. So it's
Right.
almost like, let's talk about how you're going to support the consumer. Well, how the hell are you going to support me? Because you know
Yeah.
what? I am a consumer, and I always find that interesting when I go to these conferences and listen to these speakers. It's almost like, who are you talking to? I mean,
Yeah.
it don't everybody in the room that are trying to support their consumers, their customers, they're a consumer, they're a customer. We can all sit there and say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. So I always find that disconnect really weird over the last 20 plus years. But anyway, so that's
No,
great.
I hear you. I hear you. And you know what? I tell you, my family hates it too because when I go in, the retail physical store, I'm talking to the store associate about their point of sale or whatever other technology or processes, or if they're doing buy online, pick up at store, how is it working? And it definitely deters us from the actual, what we're trying to accomplish at that very moment, which is shopping. So but you're right. We're all sample sizes of one out there, and we all have an opinion, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and jump to number four.
All right. Number four, and it's something that if you've followed me, you've heard me talk about, so it won't be a surprise, which is discount chicken is back. And so this is something that I started to talk about years ago when I was an analyst at AMR Research. And it's the idea that we all in retail go into the holiday season with the best thought out, most analytical, perfect plan as it relates to buying and most importantly, the promotional calendar. And after the first week or weekend, which by the way is upon us in terms of
Yep.
hitting November, we oftentimes rip up some or all of that plan and we call it an audible. And we try to chase the deals and try to guess where the consumer is going. And what has always shown, except for 2020, is the consumers win. And what do I mean by that is retailers want to hold on to their margin as long as possible. So they slow roll the promotional discounts. Now, I want to be careful. There are going to be plenty of promotions, meaning there's going to be a lot of outreach by the retailer, say, get your product now, early Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals. But the deeper discounts for the time I've been following this really don't happen until Black Friday, and Cyber Monday. And so um, we call it discount chicken because consumers will just wait. They'll be patient and they will often win and get the best discount. Why I say 2000 didn't work for them, back to what we talked about before. There was a lot of scarcity, there's a lot of uncertainty. Consumers worried if they didn't buy it then, they wouldn't get it. And so, for the first time ever, consumers won that game of discount chicken. This year, we're snapping back, and might as well, as the consumer in us, Ed, you and I, and everybody listening here, I
Yep.
take a wait and see attitude.
Yeah, I find that very interesting that happens to be the case. I was at a customer experience CX conference recently in Jersey City, and almost every retailer that presented, when they were asked, "What's the number one? What's holding you back? What's the biggest problem that you have with being successful in your programs?" And everyone said, well, we're like really, we're just going along, clipping along, great program, great results. Well, guess what? We're not going to make our quarter.
Mm,
So stop what you're doing, don't do anything, and
yeah,
we need to put together that emergency plan. We need to figure out when the discount chicken's coming out
that's
and drop what you're doing. And it's almost like, well, maybe if they kept doing what they're doing, maybe that would have been part of the success. But to a T, almost every retailer said that's the biggest disruptor is when sales are down and they're told stop what you're doing. Let's just focus on hitting the quarter. So
yeah.
that's retail, baby. I mean,
That's retail. It's a lot of it happens in the Monday morning merchandising meeting, and if we're not seeing all green on the dashboard, there's a lot of discussion on what to do, and oftentimes that is again chasing the deals and ripping up what we've planned for the last 6 months.
you in most of your examples, you know, you throw the word margin around, and we
Yeah.
all know margin is key. Without margin, you know, you can't open the doors. Do you think because retailers are scared and in fear, and I haven't looked at the numbers, even though we're constantly seeing in the news about layoffs, do you think there's going to be less employees in the stores this holiday season? Because they cost a lot and they
Yeah.
do a lot to go right to the bottom line of that margin. Do you
Yeah.
think the retailers, besides assortment, personalization, do you think they're rolling the dice on how many people do I really need on the floor?
Well, I mean, employees are one of the top variable expenses, right? And so it's something that retailers can pull that lever if they need to, unlike rent, as an example, or other just fixed costs. My concern is more around how enabled and motivated the seasonal employees are versus how many of them there are. And what I
Okay.
mean by that is within the store, things have gotten a lot more complex over the years. While technology has certainly helped streamline some of the operations and helped the consumers as well take a lot of the burden and do a lot of research and discovery ahead of time on their own terms. Um, there's a lot of disruption as it relates, and I brought it up before, buy online, pick up at store as an example. That's a
Yeah.
whole other process that takes more time for the associate, and by the way, takes them off the selling floor. And so there's also the idea of endless aisle where the product might not physically be available in the store, but they can find it somewhere else in the entire supply chain. While that's great because you're not walking a sale, it just takes more time, right? And so there's definitely this balance of using technology to help further humanize the experience versus the other way around, which is use technology to displace the human experience. So I understand the question. It's always a challenge hiring. So this year is not going to be any different. But my focus and the conversations I have with you and with other tech executives, along with retail leaders, is more around empowerment and enablement in this area.
Do you think that lends to the fact that, you know, some of our friends are big on supporting the frontline employee? Do you think retailers need to be spending more time and money on training and educating people? So maybe a very well trained and educated group of salespeople can do the work of a bunch of people that aren't trained and well educated. So what are
Yeah,
your thoughts
I
on
think
that?
it's sometimes more quality than quantity for sure. And again, I think it's part of the training enablement. It's also, we're all hanging around with, and you always talked about this, bring your own device, right? Bring your own
Oh yeah.
device. I think you probably invented that term back in the AirWatch days, and I still use it. What is it? BYOD? Is that what?
BYOD. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's, we all, and you were saying that before that was actually even the case. Like not everybody did have a mobile wallet and computer and everything else in there. So the associates have it. So it's less, I used to call it embedded training. And so it's not about going to the back room and doing training for an hour or two. It's just having everything at the fingertips that's required to engage the consumer and transact as well. It's as much about, and people have heard me talk about this before, the check-in event as it is the checkout event. We've been so focused on getting the throughput at the cash register, but now we should start thinking about the engagement as consumers walk in the door. And that is through a lot more quality of the store associate than the quantity for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of our clients we're working with, um, we did a bunch of store tours and talked to the department managers, and they're like, the company needs to help us remove the friction behind the counter so we have less friction in front of the counter.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
I
you
like
you may
that.
use that. You may use
I'm
that.
going
You
to
could,
use that. Well,
yeah.
no, I mean, that's very similar. Andy Lodato, who's now COO at
Oh
Vitamin
yeah.
Shoppe. I've known him forever. He has
We've
always,
all known Andy forever.
everybody knows Andy. But you know that he talks about the fact, and he did it at a Demandware conference years ago, you can't have a seamless experience for the consumer if you don't have a seamless experience for your associates. Same idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, number five.
Number five. All right. I think we deserve a prize here, Ed. And maybe we did mention it once or twice, but we haven't dove into it, which is AI. And so we've had a conversation in retail with the intersection of business and technology, and we're just bringing up AI now. So good for you. But
There you go.
we have to. And
Yeah.
and it's pertinent and it's right within lines of what we're going to see this holiday season. And that's the fact that our research shows here at Cordial that 1/3 of consumers use personal AI agents during the shopping experience. And what do I mean by that is they are using it as discovery, research, comparison shopping to find the best product. And actually, I'd even revise that a little bit. It's often now answering a problem that they have, right? So rather than um, going to a particular store and searching for a toy for your 5-year-old, you're going to these engines and saying, in plain language, I have a 5-year-old son who is into this sport and this activity, and they already have this toy. What do you recommend? And so it really becomes powerful. It reminds me of back in my strategy consulting days at IBM, we talked about who has the relationship, the name on the door or the brand in the store? Meaning, is it the retailer or is it the product in the retail? And in this case, the relationship is increasingly becoming these personal agents. And let's make no mistake about it, Ed, they are becoming walled gardens and they're going to monetize it. You're seeing it with what ChatGPT has announced with the ACP standard, or at least protocol. And so for retailers, it's not a or I should say, it's not an or, it's an and in that you can't obviously ignore your own platforms, but you need to extend your brand to these personal AI agents and become discoverable. And I think that's the key piece of it is show up and be found when consumers are searching and prompt asking for you through these engines.
So, if AI, now we're talking about AI. You're right. We only mentioned it at the beginning. We didn't touch base on it at all. So that's
I know.
great. But best for last, AI, got to talk about it. Because of all these tools, because of all these Chat GPT and whatnot, do you think there's the possibility that people will be spending less time in stores if they before they walk in? they already know what my 5-year-old boy wants for Christmas, so I can get in and get out. Do you think there's that, or online, get in and get out? Do you think that's going to be reflective in some way, shape, or form this holiday season?
Well, if retailers aren't, again, providing the right information as consumers are looking for them, then potentially. But if they are able to provide store location and store hours and directions and inventory availability at those stores, let's remember that there are 5 fewer selling days between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So
Yeah.
those retailers who offer buy online, pick up at store are able to extend that holiday online shopping window by many days up until Christmas. And so my point, bringing it up in the context of AI, is you need to show up in AI and be able to drive business, even if the transaction might be originally happening on one of these agents. And by the way, I feel like that's going to be a low number this holiday season, but
Okay.
certainly, if the inspiration and discovery is happening through these agents, driving the consumer to your property is really important.
Okay. All right. Well, I actually have a question that was sent in by Mr. Richard Fetter from Fort Lee, New Jersey.
Ah,
Um,
yeah, good old
we all,
Rexford,
we all remember him.
of
Um,
course.
well, you can name names, but I just, well, let me phrase this question differently. If you had to say these retailers are doing it right, these retailers aren't. I mean, I have my own opinions because, I'm in stores all the time. Give me an example of a retailer that would get, high marks on all five of your themes.
Oh, wow. Well, I want to actually stick on the last theme around AI because this is the question I'm asked in almost any conversation. And I'm not going to name a particular retailer, but I will give a broad approach that I see winners taking, which is leveraging AI in a way that starts at the customer and works backwards to understand where there is friction in the shopping process, whether that's for the consumer or it's for the merchant or it's for the marketer or it's for the supply chain person or it's for the store associate to make it easier. What we learned through the pandemic is convenience has become a huge loyalty driver. And the reason was during the pandemic, you wanted to find the product and you wanted it procured where, when, and how you wanted it. And so a lot of that was buying online and having it dropped off at your doorstep because you couldn't go into a non-essential retailer. But now convenience plays a role, and others talk about it just removing the friction in any segment. It used to be just for convenience, chain drug, and grocery, and now you're seeing convenience as it relates to luxury and apparel and footwear and health and beauty. So it's using AI to really understand where the friction points are in the shopping process and smoothing them out and automating that. And in many cases, that means giving more power and agency to the consumer themselves to make choice and to almost have a choose your own adventure as they decide how they want to shop.
Okay. So I know we had some technical difficulties at the beginning. So I want you to just do recap the five. Give me a sentence after every one of them. So for the people that were watching us a little
Yeah.
blurry, I understand. Just so they know what we just covered.
Hey, Ed, if we were blurry, I don't know how bad that is for everybody who's listening. I don't know. Can we go back to that? I don't know. It's
Number one.
not a bad thing. Oh, number one. All right. Tariffs hit the shelves. We've been hearing about it headline after headline, but for consumers, you're already seeing it in a lot of your day-to-day purchases. They are now coming and you're going to feel it at the shelf. And so be mindful of that. Continue to look for value, and many are going to look for more needs than wants. The next one is a tale of two consumers. You're going to have those that are still feeling really good about their portfolios and others that are really clamping down and understanding and making trade-offs. And that means for retailers, how are you segmenting? How are you understanding? How are you personalizing based on what you know about the consumer? Number three, scarcity drives demand. And so this is what we saw during the pandemic where retailers well, this didn't happen during the pandemic. That was more about just products getting stuck at the port. But here we're having retailers pull back on their open to buy because they want to be really careful not to hold too much excess inventory. So make sure your strategy as a consumer isn't to wait until, let's say, December 13th to purchase, which has been a traditional day that has seen a spike in demand, and buy it when you see the best deal possible. Fourth, discount chicken is back. For retailers, you might promote, but know that the consumer is going to wait, be patient. And so be with them and understand how you're going to communicate with them through the whole process. And the last one is personal AI agents are going to become the next shopping mall. They're creating convenience, they're creating a broad assortment, and they're providing inspiration. And also now they're providing the buy button. So understand for retailers how you're going to show up, be discoverable, and break the friction between inspiration and purchase, and make sure you're maintaining that relationship with the consumer. So there you go, Ed.
Well, Rob, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate it. Like I said, when I saw you first post this on LinkedIn and the crew came to me and said, "Hey, we got to do a webinar." I said, they're like, "Could you give us like 4 or 5 names?" I said, "No, I only need one name. I know somebody would do it." So to that point, after the holidays, I'm sure you'll come out with the, after the holiday overview, summarize the themes that worked, the themes that didn't. I'd like to invite you now afterwards, once that's done and out published, I'd like you to come back and say, "Hey, now let's talk about this, the holiday season we just had, what
Yeah,
worked, what didn't work, and maybe some surprises." So, I'm openly right here inviting you back once you do that analysis. So, is
let's
there
do it.
anything else? Is there anything else we missed? Or, I mean, I had a great time. I learned a lot. I always do talking to you. So, is there anything you want to leave everybody with?
I guess the broad piece that I continue to be asked about, especially as it relates to marketing in my current role and what's the future look like is, and I brought it up in passing a moment ago, is think about technology as a way to further humanize the experience, whether that's for within the headquarters of the retailers or it's in person at the physical store. And so let's not forget about the store associate as we go into the holiday, both as retailers, but going back to the sample size one, be kind. We're dealing with humans as a frenetic pace of the holiday, and just remember those connections are important.
Well, thank you very much. And for those that are on the line, if you're not following Cordial, you should. And if you're not following Explicate, you should. So, Rob, thank you, thank you, thank you. And my apologies to the crew on we had some little technical difficulties at the end, but got it all figured out. So I appreciate everybody on the other side of this of this webinar making everything work. So, Rob, thank you very much. Travel safe. Have a great holiday, and I look forward to connecting with you. I'm sure I'll see you at NRF. So I look forward to seeing you next time and look forward to your analysis post season. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. And the recording will be available on both of our websites. So thank you very much, Rob.
Thanks, Ed. Pleasure.